And we're here at Transforming Legal Deep Reflections with Ilona and John, who are going to tell us what they learned at Davos 2026. So let's set the stage for a second. Ilona, can you tell us what is the single most surprising thing that you heard in the 2026 World Economic Forum at Davos about AI and how it impacts professional services?
So I'll take the first part of the question first, right, without professional services, but I think it actually flows down to us. And I'll start by saying the most surprising thing that I experienced before the most surprising thing that I heard, it felt like a technology conference in a very real way, right? Just walking through the promenade, walking through the conference. I've been to tech conferences before. I haven't been to Davos. This was my first time for WEF. And it really just felt, it could have been CES, it could have been any number of AI conferences. And it had that air about it where AI was just very much center stage. It was very much front and center. And I would say, in terms of one of the more surprising things that I heard, it maybe wasn't surprising, but it was enlightening for me. It was around quantum computing. So I sat in on a panel at the AI House, and really the message was, look, quantum is here, right? It's here in varying degrees. It's here the way that computing was here in the 1980s. So there's certainly room for growth and acceleration in the decades to come, but it is here, and industries ought to start getting ready for it now so that they avoid a deficit, as they go forward. The other interesting principle adjacent to that was that classical computing is really a limitation on LLM functionality. So LLMs are really capped because of classical computing. And really the next step change that we're going to see is with that limitation lifted. So when we reach the levels of quantum that can be, effective when it comes to LLMs in that next frontier. The way that it extends to professional services, I mean, I think all organizations are captured in that sentiment, right? In that perspective. I don't think any organizations are exempt. If you're going to practice a level of readiness when it comes to emerging tech, then of course quantum has to be part of that. It's just a question of where it is on your priority list and roadmap.
And John, what felt different this year about the AI conversation compared to last year?
I think Ilona captured it really well in terms of just the maturity of particularly the corporate part of Davos's interest in AI. And so this really moved from a could AI impact my industry? How can I look like the leading edge of innovation to real talk about change management? It was fascinating to see how broad-based all of the different organizations and corporations were in thinking about the different deeper workflows and transformations they could be running within their organizations. It felt like the first time where a lot of the dialogue was around how to drive change, not just the technology change, but the change management side of AI as well. And because more and more of these corporations, organizations, law firms have now gotten their real first tastes of AI in their organizations, it felt more of like workshops happening where people were learning from each other than speculation, and that felt actually highly productive. Like it felt like it was like a roll up sleeves types conversations as opposed to pontification, and so it was very energizing.
That's
And
so well said. Yeah.
and one of the themes were scaling beyond pilots. And now that Harvey, I think you've crossed the 50% of the AMLO 100, what does it actually look like inside one of your biggest deployments? What does scaling?
Sure. I think the pace of adoption and change within large law firms has certainly taken my breath away. I think a year ago, the activity was around trying to be at the front edge of appearance about AI being something that could transform the way legal practice gets done. And this next phase, now that law firms have really embraced AI as a tool and sometimes as like an offensive tactic, has meant that the actual work itself happening in these law firms is quite a bit deeper. It's actually changing workflows within practice areas. This isn't a single tool that everyone uses in the same way. What happens in the M&A group looks so different from how a litigation team or a real estate team are using these tools. And it makes it exciting to be on the vendor side because it actually is a roll up the sleeves and let's build workflows together in a way that feels sort of uh, both higher impact and also higher potential because of the way you can get much deeper into the way that practice gets done.
Thanks. And Ilona, you and I agree that innovation isn't about what tech can do, but about what clients need.
Yeah.
What are clients actually asking for now that they weren't asking for a year ago?
So I think you probably know where my head's at. I've said this quote before, but in the words of Henry Ford, I think it was Henry Ford, he said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Right. And I think about that as sort of a guiding principle. I think it's actually it's not the client's responsibility to ask for what they want. I think it really is incumbent on us, right, as innovation leaders and also on the vendors to have that Imagineering aperture and to figure out where should this go? Where should the industry be headed, right? And in terms of client delivery, what is that delta and enhancement that they don't even know that they're looking for, right? None of us knew that we wanted the iPhone. But then when we got the iPhone, it was this wow moment and it was a whole portal to a whole new experience. And so reframing the question a bit, what I'm excited about diving into, right, and this is already in process for us here at HSFK, is just thinking about, how do we deliver differently? How do we reach that elevated level of service? What is the stack of capabilities that we can incorporate into that mission statement, and how do we make it look and feel in sophisticated and sleek and mature for our clients in a way that really is empowered by AI. So I think, it's a looser answer. It's a bit more abstract, but I think it's a big category. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And the pace of change informs that opportunity because there's a lot that we can do across practices, across regions.
And do you feel that the clients are asking more concrete questions now compared to what they did a year ago? Or do you feel like the clients are still, tell us what you're going to do for us?
It's a mix. It's a spectrum that keeps moving, right? So I think 18 months ago, many clients were against the use of AI. And, we're in this frictional period where some clients demand it, some clients don't allow it, and a lot of clients are somewhere in the middle. I think the sophisticated clients are looking for more sophisticated approaches. There's an understanding in evolving sense that a measure of time is not a measure of value necessarily. And so what is it that's giving value, right? We all think about the billable hour. I don't think the billable hour is going away, but I think we need to start thinking about value capture and what that means in a time where clients themselves have tools that AI enable them. And so they can do things in a way that's also more productive, more augmented. And what does that mean for the value proposition of legal services, of professional services?
And John, Harvey started as an AI assistant, and now you have Vault, Workflows, the mobile app, shared spaces, the LexisNexis partnerships. At what point do you become an infrastructure rather than a tool?
I love the way that Ilona talked about just the dynamic nature of law being collaborative. And I think that's collaborative both within law firms or within corporations and increasingly now across law firms and clients. And I think there's so much opportunity and potential there. If you think about Harvey as a way to be a centralizer of context, like context is the hardest part of a law firm job, that you have scattered context from your clients, from legal sources, from your firm precedents. Getting them all into one place is a really challenging proposition. But when you do it well, and when you can do it well across multiple parties, even within your own firm, it is such a powerful way to leverage intelligence in a concentrated way. So we would love for Harvey to increasingly be port of first call for lawyers where they can get all the things that they need to deliver a client deliverable, and do it in a way that's collaborative with their colleagues, with their peers, with their clients themselves. So from Harvey's perspective, I don't know if it's tool or infrastructure, but we certainly want it to be a platform that they can use to centralize context across multiple different parts of their practice. And the best part is, the way that context is centralized is going to vary based on the practice area. So the way an M&A gets done and the types of tools, context, collaboration that needs to happen looks so different from, some high stakes litigation, but the core underlying principles and fundamentals are the same. And so hopefully the technology platform can serve both use cases just as well.
And the next is, I hear you. The next is a question for both of you. The Skills 2026 survey showed that almost 40% of law firms now build client-facing products. But when I talk to clients, when help with a strategy, the biggest bottleneck is not the technology, it's the underlying data architecture and the change management. the most have fragmented knowledge systems at best. Ilona, especially at your firms, when you're merging two firms together, how are you solving the data architecture challenge before you can scale AI on top of it? And then, John, what do you do to help clients in this problem?
So this is a really important question. And without going into too much of the technical detail, I will just say that this is a real priority. I think it's all, in my mind, in my roadmap, it's all about the data, right? The data has to be prioritized. And I think that in many ways is the value proposition with clients. They understand that we are the custodians of their data. And so thinking about how we can leverage that data in the optimal way is necessarily a measure of value, or it should be. And I think, getting that data harnessed, I mean, there are many technical approaches to that, right? And it's quite a challenging effort, and it takes a level of sophistication. We are very lucky to have an extraordinary IT team. We work with great vendors. So I think it all comes together, and it's in process. But I think it needs to be top of the roadmap for sure.
I think Ilona said it well. The firms that leverage their data and IP in the most efficient and deep ways are so well positioned. So for Harvey on the technology side, a lot of the investments needs to be in the way we build APIs and MCP, such that you're able to connect to all the different data sources, whether they are near at hand to where a lawyer works, or deep into their document management system, or out to some third party when you're doing tool calling. And so it's where technology starts to become really fundamental to being able to practice in differentiated ways. So I love the focus on skills, spending more time thinking about how to wrangle data in thoughtful ways.
And are there any bottlenecks where the data sits in one vendor who doesn't give access to others, and challenges that we as an industry can think about how to better streamline?
I mean, I'll go first, but you should hop in. I think a lot of data management is change management, which is the identification of the data sources to be prioritized and the actual connectivity, whether it's via API or MCP. And all precedents within a law firm aren't made equal. You've got your golden data sets, and you've got everything else. And so finding the right ways to surface the right context for drafting, analysis, extraction is a super complicated problem. And it starts with the humans figuring out how to do the right connectivity.
So speaking of the humans, Ilona, I think one of the themes at Davos was human in the lead, not human in the loop. You're HSFK's first chief AI officer, a broad level role. How are you operationalizing this idea at a global firm?
So I always start with the premise that at its best, AI enables us to be more human. That's the exercise. And I think if we think about AI in more of an anthropomorphic way, right? Thinking about it as more of a human agent, something that we work alongside rather than that we lead or have to have oversight over, I think the more successful we'll be. And so much of the exercise when it comes to AI, and it's not just legal, this is really cross-organizational, cross-sector, the data opportunities, the data challenges, and the roadmap around AI, the AI embedding journey. Organizations it's a systems thinking exercise. It's how do you embed it in a way that really propels your organization. So my perspective is that my role and my team, we really are a growth engine for the firm. Right? We are not a support function. We are truly a growth engine in the sense that we accelerate the broader firm, and that's what we're here to do. And the question is, how do we do that? How do we enable our colleagues? How do we empower them? What do we bring in? How do we bring it in? How do we achieve differentiation? How do we leverage the incredible talent that's already in the firm? So it's about the people, right? It's about our colleagues, our lawyers. It's about the clients. It's about what we deliver. And the path from A to B is what we can figure out how to accelerate and make as good as possible with the advent of AI.
A question for both of you again. Yuval Noah Harari warned in Davos that AI will dominate wherever language is central, and law is pure language. Does that framing resonate with you, or do you think it misses the mark?
I can start and John chime in. This is a really fun question. I generally really enjoy Harari's perspectives. I think about language a lot and linguistics. If you think about humanity, right, and as a philosophy major, this is where I start to get really excited now. If you think about linguistics and what that means more generally, our language is our common denominator. It's the way that we understand experience, because it's the way that we define and distill experience and the way that we communicate it person to person. I think that with technology, it's already had a language. Code is the language of the machines. But what's really interesting now is the convergence, right? Because code has been the language of machines. Linguistics, actual language, words, has been the language of humans. But now we're seeing through the coding assistive tools that you can actually code and vibe code and then real code through natural language. So you don't actually need the language of the machines anymore. Now they're starting to speak our language. But I think what that really means is that we can be augmented, right? There's this hybrid intelligence that's now possible. And the question is, how do we leverage that?
And John, how should we think about training the next generation of lawyers in an AI augmented world?
I think we're going to be spending a lot more time talking about how to bring junior talent along for the ride. Like obviously, the foundation of every law firm, every legal department is its people, and so the training in an AI augmented world, as Ilona said, feels like it should be different. And it starts probably even before law school, but certainly by law school, we were making a ton of investments in. I think we work with now over 37 law schools across the U.S. and the U.K., Australia. And it's really helping law schools change the way they do training such that when you show up and are able to leverage tools that augment the way you work on your own and in collaboration with others, and that you're able to do it in the way that captures all the like richness of practice of law. So I think for us, and I think for every law firm, thinking about the ways that you empower junior lawyers as they learn and train on strategic questions is one of the most interesting and fun problems to be solving.
I just told today the client, I think AI is the solution, not the problem with associate training. Just like pilots don't go with jets to the air without spending hundreds of hours on the simulator on the ground. We're not going to have year one, year two, year three. We're going to have level one, level two, level three. And we're talking about the generation that grew up on the couch playing Dark Knight or whatever. And for them, failing a level is just trying again until you figure it out. So they'll do 42 mergers before they'll get to trying on a real client. And I think that's actually going to be, and we've seen Megan Ma start to do stuff in Stanford who build this, that law firm will be able to do. Final questions. What is the one thing that the legal industry should take from Davos 2026 that it probably won't, or it will?
I could start. Not a lot of law firms are present at Davos, a lot of corporations, but the ones that are, I think, have caught on to something which is like we're super lucky to be in law during the AI revolution because it is so amenable to help via AI. Obviously coding is an industry that's going to get transformed super quickly, but I think there's so much promise for what AI can do to help lawyers in law. And we're uniquely in a great situation to be able to shape what that looks like. So the conversations at Davos between law firms, between corporations, organizations feel like they're some of the most optimistic conversations because of the potential for all the collaboration that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I'll add to that. And I think, it's about AI was so central at Davos. It was part of each conversation, that in some way. And that to me means that it's part of the operating system. It's not just an adjacency. And it's really interesting. Sam Altman said this a few months ago when they studied OpenAI data and usage data. They said that, the older generations were using it as a Google search. The millennial generations were using it sort of as a life advisor. And then the younger generations started using ChatGPT as their operating system. And I think the more that we can start to think about AI as an operating system, not just individually, but organizationally, that's where we're going to reach that step change. And the question is to figure out what that means.
Thank you very much, both. And we'll see you next Davos or maybe Legal Week, whatever comes first.
Thanks so much, Oz. Thanks, John.
Thanks, us. Thanks, Ilona.
Bye.